Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing the Read Banned Books 2022 tag. This tag was created by Brian at Bookish, and I also saw Wendy at BookNerdTV do this tag. I'll link both of their videos below. And I loved Wendy's discussion that she did along with this tag, just talking about why people feel so uncomfortable reading experiences outside of their own that they feel the need to ban those books. It really inspired me, so I wanted to do this tag as well. So I took a look at the past few years of books that have been banned or challenged that the American Library Association keeps. I'll link that below as well if you want to go check those out. And I found so many books that I really love, just so many. I have decided to do top 10 from just the past few years, books that I love on those lists. So these 10 are books that I highly recommend. I own almost all of these, and I just find myself thinking about all the time. You really can't go wrong with these books because they are just fantastic. So let's start with some nonfiction, beginning with Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I loved this book so much. This is basically Coates' memoir, but it's written almost as if he is writing a letter to his son, explaining his own experiences growing up as a Black man in the US and sort of the dissonance between that experience and what you hear about in terms of the American dream and how limiting it is for Black men because of the way that the world treats them, and how he wants more for his son. He wants a bigger world for him. It is incredibly beautifully written. I loved the prose. It's just so heartfelt, and I really love this memoir. Next is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. This is a must-read if you have any interest in social justice nonfiction. Michelle Alexander has this amazing argument that is really well written and well researched and well presented that kind of talks about the way that policing and the judicial system and the prison system in the US are really designed to implement a new Jim Crow system, which is sort of a racial segregation. And she talks about the way that Black communities are hollowed out by the way that especially Black men are targeted by this system so that they will be kind of pulled out of society and just sort of crumble a lot of the family and community systems that Black communities are built on. And it is just such an important read and just such a good read as well. I definitely recommend this one. Next, moving on to some graphic work, starting with The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, which is the sweetest graphic work. It is a beautiful story about a prince who is sort of in love with haute couture, and he dresses up all the time, has sort of a drag persona, wearing these incredible dresses, but doesn't feel really comfortable sharing that with his family or his people because he doesn't think they'd be comfortable with it. And this story talks about a friendship that he develops with a dressmaker who has these grand dreams of designing beautiful dresses and gets to design dresses for him and kind of their friendship as it evolves and what they each need. And it's just the sweetest story with the most beautiful drawings. It's just so heartwarming. Next is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is a graphic memoir of Satrapi growing up in Iran during a time of war. It is really beautifully illustrated, these kind of stark black and white lines, and it just is such a fascinating perspective on war from a child's viewpoint. It also, in the series, kind of goes through her teenagehood when she immigrated to Europe and then later went back to Iran, and it's just really fascinating hearing about all of those experiences. Next is Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This is another graphic memoir and also sort of history. In this, Spiegelman talks about his interactions with his dad and also gets his dad's story of kind of growing up and the times that he spent in the internment camps during the Holocaust. Both of his parents were in the Holocaust. And so this is their story about going through that and all of that trauma, but it's also the story of Art Spiegelman himself dealing with his dad and dealing with the generational trauma that was passed down to him. Similarly, The Best We Could Do by Thi Bui explores kind of generational trauma. So this is a memoir of Thi Bui and her interactions in trying to understand her parents' history. So her family were refugees from Vietnam, and they moved to the US when she was a young age. So she's got a lot of trauma that is inherited from everything that her parents went through. And this book is her attempt to sort of learn about their history, what they went through in Vietnam, and process a lot of that trauma. It is incredibly moving and just also pretty heartbreaking. Now moving on to some middle grade, starting with Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. This is such a beautiful memoir. Jacqueline Woodson is an amazing writer, and this is a middle grade in verse memoir of her childhood. And it is just so beautiful. It's all about her growing up, about her time in the South as well as in New York, about her love of reading and books, even though she had dyslexia. It is incredibly beautifully written and just such a heartwarming story of a little girl's journey. Next is Ghost by Jason Reynolds. This is the first book in his track series, which is all about some middle school kids joining a community track team and sort of learning and growing from that. And this first book about Ghost is all about this boy who is living in kind of intense poverty, but he loves to run. He is so fast at running, and sort of kind of how he joins the track team and how he grows from that. And then the last category is YA, starting with Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is another book told in verse. It is told from two perspectives, two half-sisters who don't realize that the other exists until their father dies in a plane crash, and sort of the secrets of the family come out. And it is just beautifully written. I love the two perspectives, and I loved the sort of discussion about their differing experiences, because one of the sisters has grown up in New York and the other one has grown up in the Dominican Republic, and it's just such a beautiful story of family and grief and sisterhood. And finally, Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This is a historical fiction set in the 1950s in Chinatown in San Francisco, and it follows a Chinese-American teenage girl who is discovering that she's queer, and it is just incredibly written. The sense of history is so strong, the way it talks about things like the Red Scare, but also the way that being queer was viewed in her community. It's just a gorgeously written book that is perfect coming of age story. Okay, so those are my top 10 books that I found in just the past few years on the banned and challenged book list. If you guys have read any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. If you have any favorites that you've seen on the banned book list, I'd love to hear about that. Also, if you want to know more about any of these books, I have reviews for quite a few of them, so I will put those in the description box below if you want to check out more about them. But really, in general, let's just all read a lot of these banned books, because they're really wonderful. And it's such a shame that some authors are getting silenced simply because they're not kind of having the same experiences as perhaps the mainstream in the US. But their stories are just so deeply moving and so well written and just so worth our time. And you know, I think also that reading about people's experiences that are different from our own is such a great way to build understanding and empathy, and it's just what we should be doing with our time. So I'd love to hear from you about your experiences with any of these books, or any books that you want to read that are on the ban list, anything at all. Go ahead and leave me a comment down below.